Have you ever felt like your life isn't moving forward? Like no matter how hard you work, things just don't seem to improve? Or you've seen people around you and on social media with half your skills and half your knowledge and yet are somehow way ahead of you in life? Like their business is doing well, they've got money coming in, and then you're left wondering, why is this not the case for me? See, most people think success is something that you chase, but the truth is, you're unconsciously rejecting success before it can ever reach you. Now, the reason has nothing to do with luck or hard work. It all has to do with what your frequency is calibrated to receive. See, the thing is, you're seeing what successful people do on the surface in your physical reality, but you're missing all the factors happening behind the scenes that make it seem like they always get everything they want. See, for you, thinking about the success that you want right now might make you feel anxious or doubtful that you'll ever have it. It might actually feel too grand for you, and that's a sign that you don't yet have the capacity to receive it. Because here's the thing, you cannot receive anything in reality that your frequency is not calibrated to. So you're either forcing action to receive something your frequency is not calibrated to, or you're naturally taking action and receiving success because you calibrated your frequency first. Now, how you begin to increase your capacity to receive so that you stop rejecting the success you want is you start to prioritize your frequency over forced action. So your frequency can either become a magnet to all the things that you don't want in your life, or it can be a magnet to all the things that you do want in your life. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit about how your frequency creates your reality, and then we're going to get into how you can calibrate your frequency so you can stop rejecting your desire and start receiving it instead. Now, the first most crucial thing that you need to understand is that action does not create outcomes. Frequency does. We fall victim to this illusion that hard work creates outcomes because it's what we're taught on social media, it's what's pushed to us, it's what we learn in school. But you have to come to the realization that no amount of action will ever lead you to a reality other than what your frequency is calibrated to. So let's conceptualize hard work as action. Now, you think that action alone equals success, which is why you're working so tirelessly through action to chase it. But let's take a little bit of a dive into how reality actually works. Just think about how many people are out there working 2 to 3 jobs, sacrificing hobbies, time with family, their weekends, and losing sleep, and are barely making ends meet. While there are entrepreneurs out there working 4-hour days, enjoying the rest of the day however they please, and they're building an empire, creating generational wealth, all while receiving more money than you can even fathom. So you really have to think critically here. If hard work creates success, shouldn't their experience of reality be the other way around? The difference between them is an effort. That's the first thing that you need to understand. It's about the quality of action that's being produced. Now, what determines the quality of action that's being produced consistently is your frequency. So working hard while you're in the wrong frequency is like you trying to listen to 90s R&B while your radio is tuned to pop. So essentially, no matter how loud you turn the volume, you're going to keep hearing pop, no matter how badly you want to hear 90s R&B. I'd rather hear 90s R&B over pop, to be honest. But the key takeaway here is that if your frequency isn't tuned, you're just going to keep amplifying the wrong signal. Now, let's say you're making 5K a month. Your frequency is calibrated to 5K a month. Everything about you just broadcasts 5K a month. If I gave you a 30K a month business to run as you are right now, what do you think will happen? Well, because you are not the 30K a month version of you who can achieve or maintain that, you are the 5K a month version of you, then the business is eventually going to balance to your frequency. So it's going to fall to the point that you are left experiencing a 5K a month reality. Now, this is because it's your frequency that leads you to think and act in ways that ensure you always experience a 5K a month reality, because your frequency is tuned to a 5K a month reality. So you have to come to the realization that your frequency determines what you are capable of receiving because it knows what you are capable of maintaining. Your frequency is not going to give you a reality it knows you cannot handle, right? So if action isn't truly the lever, then what do you need to do? You need to stop prioritizing action over the calibration of your frequency. Now, the word frequency is interchangeable with terms that you've heard before, such as your state of consciousness, but all you need to know is it's essentially your internal state. And it's frequency that separates those who have the capacity to create and receive what they desire in reality from those who don't. So now that raises the question, how does frequency create your reality then? One of the most crucial things you need to understand when it comes to frequency and reality is that frequency and reality are always matching one-to-one. So you have to come to the realization that your reality is not random. No matter how many people will tell you that the stars have to align for you to receive success, it all has to do with luck. It all has to do with the chances that you've been given, the opportunities that you've been given. It has nothing to do with luck or chance. You need to get that through your head or you will never succeed. Your reality is purely a reflection of your frequency. Now, there's a quote from Nikola Tesla, and he said, if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Your reality, this reality goes so much deeper than you can perceive at face value. You only ever perceive 0.0035% of the entire electromagnetic spectrum, which means you only ever perceive 0.0035% of reality with your 5 senses. So what you need to come to the realization is that there are so many things happening behind the scenes that are creating this reality that you're perceiving and which you call realistic. So what you think you know, you're only operating within a 0.0035% within what is truly there, which is why you're not really getting the results that you want. The Hermetists also talk about the law of cause and effect. And the law of cause and effect states that every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause. And what they're essentially saying here is that nothing happens by chance. So you're not receiving random outcomes in your reality. You're only ever receiving and experiencing outcomes your frequency has registered you for. So when it comes to you and your reality, what is the cause and what is the effect? Because if we can understand the components of the cause and the effect, then we can ensure that we always know how to alter the cause so that we always get certain effects that we want. Now, what you need to understand is that for anything to exist physically, it must first exist vibrationally. Now, that means if something exists physically, it is purely an effect. The cause is that it must exist vibrationally first. Now, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into that. But the issue with this is that most people never seek the cause, which is why most people are left with effects that they struggle to change in their reality. So we're going to dive a little deeper into the aspects of things existing vibrationally and things existing physically. Now, if something exists physically, it is purely an effect. That also means that reality is an effect, because reality is physical. It exists on the physical plane. Now, because reality is what you're perceiving with your 5 senses and you cannot perceive anything outside of that, of course you would have a tendency to operate and believe in only what you can see. So anything you can perceive in your reality, including your actions, what you receive in your reality, are purely effects. You need to be very clear on that. Because what you've been doing up until now is you've been focused on hard work. And remember, hard work is just physical action. And because action is physical, it is purely an effect. And you've been trying to change reality. And as we just said, reality is also an effect. So you've been trying to alter effects with other effects, which doesn't make any sense. You've been ignorant to and neglecting the cause, which is why you're stuck in the same reality and why you still haven't received the success that you desire, no matter how badly you want it or work towards it. Now let's look at the aspect of things existing vibrationally. The easiest way to conceptualize this is to look at it in terms of frequency. So your external world is purely a mirror that reflects your internal world, which we'll conceptualize as your frequency. what you have to come to the conclusion is that attempting to change reality with reality without changing the source, which is frequency, is futile. Now, I'm sure you're starting to understand that the universe does not reward the intensity of your struggle. It doesn't reward you based on how intensely you work for the day and how tired you are at the end of the day. It simply reads your frequency. Now, your frequency registers you to the reality that matches it one-to-one. Let's dive even deeper into that so you can understand it even more simply. So your frequency, consciousness, internal state, it emits a wave of information, and we're going to conceptualize this as an energetic signature. Now, I'm going to give you an analogy, just a very simple analogy to help you understand how your frequency creates or allows you to receive a certain reality that matches it. So let's conceptualize your energetic signature as a unique ID. We'll conceptualize the universe as a store, you as the customer, and your desired reality, the success that you want, as the product. So in this analogy, the customer sends out the unique ID to the store. Now the reality and frequency equivalent of that is that you send out an energetic signature to the universe. So you send out a frequency to the universe. Now what the store does is the store distributes that product to the customer that matches the unique ID provided. And the reality and frequency equivalent of that is that the universe distributes the reality to you, so you receive the reality from the universe that matches the energetic signature or the frequency provided. And that is essentially the process that we call manifestation. And that is the simplest way for you to understand it through that analogy. And I always like to talk about things in terms of analogies because I believe it is the easiest way for the human mind to conceptualize complex things. And it was Leonardo da Vinci that said, simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication. So that's why we like to use analogies over here. Now, the thing that you have to come to terms with is that no matter how much action you put into the equation, whatever your frequency is calibrated to is always what you're going to receive. So action plus a 5K a month frequency will never produce or materialize a 10K a month reality. No matter how much action you take, if you're calibrated to a 5K a month frequency, it is inevitably going to lead you to a 5K a month reality. So now let's conceptualize frequency as the seeds that you plant into the ground, expecting the reality that you want, or the reality that matches it, to grow from it. You cannot plant watermelon seeds into the ground, into the soil, and expect to grow and receive apples, right? That doesn't make any sense. So you have to come to the realization that you're only rejecting success because you're simply not calibrated to it yet on a frequency level. So now this raises the question, well, Mike, how does it work that way? Why is it that frequency inevitably leads to a certain reality? Well, that's because you can only perceive things in your reality resonant with your current frequency. Now, the universe and reality is huge. It's bigger than you can even fathom, and yet it is only 0.0035% of what is truly there. So you don't actually experience everything that exists in reality. You only experience what resonates with your frequency. So the people you encounter, the circumstances you encounter, the opportunities that you notice, the ideas and thoughts that you have, none of those things that you experience are random. They all become noticeable and perceivable to you once you are calibrated to them through your frequency. That's why all the friends that you have around you, you're all on the same wavelength, right? And it becomes harder for you to break out of that to become better. That's why so many people say, you know, if you want to become better, you have to hang around higher quality people, network with better people. Because if you can meet more people with higher frequencies, your frequency will interact with theirs when you're with each other, and it will meet in the middle, right? So you may be bringing down their frequency a little bit, but yours is coming up, and it's just going to keep going up and up and up, and that's how you create a network of people that constantly elevate. So I've got another analogy for you guys here. There are endless possibilities of radio stations broadcasting right now, but you can only ever be tuned to one of them. So currently you're tuned to a 5K a month frequency, and that is all you can hear. But that doesn't mean that there are not other radio stations broadcasting that you can tap into and tune into and begin to receive the signal from it, right? So if you're tuned to a 5K a month reality, then you're going to encounter people, you're going to encounter circumstances, you're going to notice and act upon opportunities, have ideas and thoughts, all resonant with a 5K a month reality. So all of these things are inevitably going to lead you to experience a 5K a month reality. Now let's say there's a 10K a month reality that you can tap into and tune into. You are going to encounter the people, you're going to encounter the circumstances, you're going to notice the opportunities and have ideas and thoughts that are resonant with a 10K a month reality. So even if you have a 5K a month reality looking around you right now, if you tune into a 10K a month frequency, you're going to receive the signal from it. You're going to receive all of these things naturally. And if you act upon all these things, which you'll be naturally compelled to do anyway, it is inevitably going to lead you to a 10K a month reality. And that is the importance of calibrating your frequency first. You want to hear the right signal. As I said before, if you calibrate it to a 5K a month frequency and you're trying to receive a 10K a month frequency, you cannot get to it through hard work alone. You cannot keep turning up the volume expecting to hear a different signal, a different frequency. It doesn't work that way. So you have to come to the realization that once you calibrate your frequency to your desired reality, your perception of reality will shift to notice opportunities that naturally lead you to that reality. Now this raises the question, if what you receive is always based on your frequency, then what is your frequency actually made of? Because in order for you to truly understand frequency, you have to understand its characteristics, you have to know its attributes so that you can alter those things and ultimately alter the frequency that it makes up. So let's get into the attributes of frequency. So your frequency consists of your dominant beliefs, emotions, and attention. Beliefs being what you believe to be true, your emotions being your baseline emotional state, and the emotions that you feed your circumstances, and attention being what you focus on internally and externally. Now, these are the mental attributes that make up the frequency you emit. So as I said, if we can alter these three things, then we can ultimately alter the frequency that you emit. So now you might be wondering, why am I getting a reality I don't want, even though in my mind, I know what I do want? Well, that's because you have a programmed frequency that is completely misaligned to your desire. So your frequency has been programmed by parents, school, society, your entire life, right? Your parents had the most access to you as a child. And during the ages of 0 to 7, your brain is operating in waves of theta. And in waves of theta, it's known as the gateway to the subconscious mind, because it's the state where your subconscious mind is the most suggestible, right? So the things you experience from 0 to 7 is what is going to impress on your subconscious mind, and it is going to ripple throughout your reality even to this day. Now in school, what do you learn? You learn that getting good grades, you're celebrated for it by your parents, by your teachers. But then when you get bad grades, what happens? You're frowned upon, you're reprimanded for making mistakes. And ultimately what you learn is that failure is bad. Now, if failure is the catalyst for growth and you're afraid of taking paths that will lead you to failures, then how are you ever going to grow as an adult? That's why this is so important. So what's happened is because these people in society have programmed you your entire life, you've unconsciously adopted a similar frequency, which is why you're struggling to receive anything that doesn't fit society's programming. Now, in terms of success, you have to break out of the mold of society, and this is exactly why it is so difficult to achieve that. And no amount of hard work is going to help you break out of that. You need to break out of it from your existence on the mental plane that is emitting your frequency. So now that you understand that you have a programmed frequency, let's start to become aware of what your frequency is actually aligned to, because awareness is the prerequisite to any sort of transformation. If you can become aware of the attributes that make up your frequency, then you'll start to know what to change, right? So let's dive into a little bit about your beliefs and how they're making up your frequency and therefore the reality you're experiencing. Now, to put it simply, beliefs alter the lens that you see reality through. So you may be working hard, you may be struggling, you may be tired at the end of every day, but actually ask yourself, how many of your beliefs contradict you achieving your desired reality? Now, let's say you're holding the belief that money is hard to make, which is a belief that a lot of my members in my community are holding, most people in society are holding this belief. If you hold this belief, you are inevitably going to experience a reality where money is hard to make, because beliefs alter the lens you see reality through. You're never going to experience a reality where money is easy to make if you're constantly believing that money is hard to make. That doesn't make any sense, right? So whether you want a high-paying job, you want to land a new promotion, all you have to really do is simply apply and convey your value to the interviewers. That is it. But because you're holding this belief that money is hard to make, you subconsciously believe that the road has to be hard, that you need decades of experience to land that job, that you can't just get that job at your young age now because it can't be that easy. Well, it can. You just have to apply and convey the value. That is it, right? I remember there was a clip years back of Andrew Tate talking about how, I don't know if it applied to himself or if he was suggesting people to do this, but he was saying that you don't need a degree to land the job. They just need to know and have confidence in you that you can fulfill the tasks that that job requires you to fulfill. So if you can work for someone for free for a month or two, as long as you can show them that you can fulfill the tasks that are required, then even if you don't have the degree or you don't have the decades of experience that you think you need, then what reason would they have not to hire you, right? Now, let's say you're holding the belief that money is hard to make and you're someone who wants to make money in your business. You are subconsciously going to make things harder and more complex in your business. You can't just let your business be simple. You can't let it be simple to scale because you believe that money is hard to make. And so you believe that the road to get there has to be hard. So you subconsciously make things harder and more complex than it has to be. So what you have to come to the realization is that any belief you have that doesn't serve you is only there to control you. Now let's dive into a little bit about how your emotions are making up your frequency. Now when it comes to emotion, all emotion is energy in motion. And wherever energy goes, reality grows. So we'll first touch on the aspect of your baseline emotional state. Now the way society has been constructed, we have a tendency to default into negative emotional states like anxiety, stress, and fear because we're unnaturally working a 9 to 5, we're unnaturally sitting at a desk for 8 hours, we're unnaturally working for somebody who we perceive to be of a higher status than us or more authoritative than us, right? We lose touch with nature, we lose touch with ourselves, we lose touch with our inner world, and all we're focused on is our outer world because we believe we need to focus on our outer world in order to survive. And that's why we fall into these negative emotional states. Now think about it and really ask yourself, how often do you ever operate from a state of gratitude? Are you ever grateful for the things that you have? Like you're watching this video right now, I'm sure on a mobile, a tablet, a PC, TV, whatever. But you're holding that, you have that right now. Are you even grateful that you have it? Or are you always focused on the lack that you have of something that you want? You can still want the thing that you want, but you can also work towards it from a state of gratitude for the things that you have now. Now let's touch on the other aspect of emotions making up your frequency that has to do with the emotions that you're feeling and how you're feeding them into the circumstances in your reality. So a majority of the time, you spend it feeling negative emotions in your job or your business, in your relationships, even outside of those things, just most of the day, you're feeling negative emotions. And you're feeding them into circumstances that you don't want. For example, something goes wrong in your business, something goes wrong in your job, boss gets upset at you, there's a task that didn't get done, right? You didn't close a sale in your business. And you feed into it, those circumstances with fear, anger, and frustration. Now what happens is by feeding into those things, those circumstances in your reality that you don't want with negative emotions, emotions being energy in motion, you're unconsciously creating more of those circumstances that you don't want. Because wherever energy goes, reality grows. And that is exactly why those circumstances continue to exist as a problem, not only in your reality, but also in your mind as well, your existence on the mental plane that is ultimately making up your frequency or emitting the frequency. And you also continue to feel an undesired emotional state. So no matter how much you have in reality, someone is wishing out there that they have half of what you have. And yet you're still operating from a negative emotional state. So now let's dive into your attention. Now, where attention goes, energy flows. And wherever energy goes, reality grows. Now, it's the centralization of this energy that gives something momentum in the universe. So what you have to come to the realization is that whatever holds your attention is what materializes into your reality. And that is because attention, wherever attention goes, energy flows. And your energy produces a vibration. And the rate of that vibration produces a frequency, and then your frequency and reality are always matching 1-to-1. So that frequency is inevitably going to materialize into reality. Now ask yourself the question, how often is your attention placed on doubt over faith? How much do you ask yourself, what if this doesn't work? What if I fail? What if my business fails? How am I going to survive when my business fails? How am I going to survive when I lose my job? Rather than cultivating the feeling of already having it. See, if you constantly think, what if this doesn't work, rather than thinking, oh, how cool would it be if all of this worked? How cool would the trips be with my partner or my friends or my family be if all of this worked? The effect in reality, if you're constantly thinking, placing your attention on doubt, is that you're going to be unmotivated. You're going to procrastinate the high needle moving tasks in your business or your job that are actually going to get you to the point that you want to be at. And you're just going to continue working on menial tasks that don't provide any value. It just provides your ego a sense of satisfaction that you're doing something and that you're tired at the end of the day. But the universe doesn't reward you for that. You're going to be stuck in the same job in the same position. And ultimately, your business is going to struggle to grow. So what you need to understand from all this is that your frequency isn't registering you for the reality that you do want, no matter how badly you want it. It is registering you for the reality you don't want, which is why you have your current undesired reality. So the key takeaway here is that the dominant attributes of your frequency don't align or don't reinforce the achievement of your desired reality, the success that you want. They actually contradict you achieving that desired reality. And that's all because you have a programmed frequency and you never got to choose these aspects of your frequency for yourself. They were programmed and given to you and you accepted them as true. So now this raises the question, well, do I still need to take action? What you need to understand when it comes to action is that all action is what transmutes frequency into reality. So yes, you need to take certain actions to create certain outcomes, but it should not be the highest priority. Because once you calibrate your frequency, then you're naturally going to feel like taking the right actions anyway. Now you might be wondering, Mike, what do you mean by this? Well, in order to answer that, you need to understand the frequency materialization sequence. And the frequency materialization sequence is a sequence of events that describe how frequency is materialized into reality. So you have frequency, intuition, compulsion, action, and reality. Those are the components of the frequency materialization sequence. Now, what you need to understand about this is that each stage is constructed by the stage that precedes it. So reality is constructed by action, action is constructed by compulsion, compulsion is constructed by intuition, and intuition is constructed by frequency. Now, action, as I just said, is what transmutes frequency into reality. That's all it does. Compulsion is what you naturally feel like doing, what you're compelled to do. Now, your intuition is your inner guidance system. In being your inner world, and tuition being guidance, teaching, or instruction. And your frequency, we've talked enough about that as it is. I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about here when it comes to frequency. So your issue is that you're focused on only action. But as you can see, action is way too late down the chain. It's way too far downstream. It's, as I said, it's only what transmutes frequency into reality. So there are factors happening before it that you need to alter, right? So what you need to do is start to prioritize and alter upstream, because as you start to prioritize upstream, you begin to alter the cause, and ultimately by altering the cause, you begin to get the effects that are associated with that cause, right? So what you have to come to the realization is that you're not necessarily rejecting your desired reality, you're just calibrated to receiving something else. So if we can begin to alter your frequency to align with the reality, with the success you want, then you will inevitably begin to receive your desire. So I'll give you a couple of examples to help you further understand this. Now let's say your frequency is calibrated to 5K a month. Now your intuition is constructed by the stage that precedes it. So your intuition downloads and receives information limited to the scope of what your frequency is calibrated to. So your intuition will also be filled with information resonant with 5K a month. Now, what your intuition is going to guide you to do is to feel compelled, and the compulsion is going to be constructed by that 5K a month intuition. So you're going to feel like naturally doing things resonant with 5K a month. And once you begin to naturally feel like doing things resonant with 5K a month, then the action that you naturally take is also going to be resonant with 5K a month. And then action is what transmutes frequency into reality. So your reality, you're going to materialize a 5K a month reality. Now that's exactly how that works. That's why I said if you're tuned into the 5K a month radio station, then all you're going to get in reality is 5K a month. This is just the sequence of events that help or that lead to that frequency materializing physically in reality. Now, let's get into an example where your frequency is calibrated to 10K a month. Now, what's going to happen? Your intuition is also going to be calibrated to 10K a month. So you're going to be getting ideas and thoughts that lead you to a 10K a month reality. Then your intuition is going to cause you to naturally feel like doing things that are resonant to leading you to a 10K a month reality. And then once you naturally feel like doing those things, then you're naturally going to take action resonant with 10K a month that ultimately transmutes that 10K a month frequency into a 10K a month reality. So you should be understanding by now exactly how frequency materializes itself into reality, into physical form. Now, here's what you can expect. Here's what happens when you're in the right frequency, so you know you're on the right track. So number one is you'll stop rejecting the success you desire, not because you're trying harder, but because receiving finally feels natural. So the success you desire stops feeling out of reach, and instead it becomes what you expect. And number two, you'll begin to perceive things resonant with your new frequency. So the tasks that you used to avoid out of fear suddenly become obvious to act on or to take. The opportunities that were always there, you begin to notice them because your frequency is now calibrated to that signal. And now you begin to act on them. And then you start to naturally take actions imbued with a higher frequency. So the actions that you take from this higher frequency, some of those actions might seem similar or exactly the same actions that you would normally take from your lower frequency, but the way you execute the actions are of a completely different quality. And it eventually materializes your desired reality, so long as you're operating from that higher frequency. And three, you'll begin to feel like the successful version of you even before your reality changes. So you'll begin interacting with people from a more magnetic frequency. Now, when it comes to business, what's going to happen is you're going to begin to network with better people. You're going to start to make better decisions with more clarity. You're going to stop second guessing yourself. You're going to know exactly what needs to be done. You're going to start to close more sales because when you show up on the sales calls, you show up with a more magnetic frequency. The potential customer or the lead begins to trust you. They begin to view you as an authority figure. And the effect is you close more sales, right? Now, when it comes to your job, you're going to have more confidence and ability to stand out amongst your coworkers, to stand out amongst the people that you're competing against for a certain job. You're going to be perceived as higher value in your current role and in the job interviews that you do. The crucial thing you need to understand from all this is that the path will unfold exactly how it needs to. So as you maintain frequency and take consistent action from it, you can either receive the success really quickly, or that can lead to a failure that leads to a learning lesson, that leads to eventual growth, and that growth leads you to receiving the success that you want. So the path will always lead you to materializing your desire. You have to come to the realization that when your frequency changes, action takes care of itself. So that raises the question, so what should I do from now on then? You need to calibrate your frequency before taking any action, because it's not about the act of you doing, it is about the frequency you're in as you do it. So you might feel resistant when you wake up to calibrate your frequency, and you might think, if I skip calibrating my frequency today, I can jump straight into work, straight into action, and I can get an extra 20 minutes or 30 minutes of work done. But calibrate your frequency first. Action with the wrong frequency is always going to produce an undesired reality and will therefore be wasted effort. Action taken with the right frequency will eventually, inevitably lead to a desired reality, and it will always be a fruitful day. Always keep that in mind. Now, what you have to come to the realization is that you haven't been unlucky or unfortunate. It's not that you weren't one of God's favorites. You were just calibrated for surviving, not for thriving. Once you calibrate your frequency, you won't need to chase success. Success will start chasing you. If you're interested about learning more of this stuff and you want to break free from the program of lack and limitation, and you want to align with your highest potential to effortlessly create your desired reality, you can join my private community. The link is in the description below. I'll see you there.